You really want to kill the comic book movie genre this year, don't you, Sony? Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Madam Web, the latest movie in Sony's Spider-Man universe, the fourth one in total, counting Venom, Venom Let There Be Carnage, and Morbius. This movie actually serves as a prequel to this whole universe and takes place in 2003. Our main character is Cassandra Webb, played by Dakota Johnson, who is a paramedic, and she has a near-death experience that grants her superpowers. How? The movie never really tells us how, but the powers that she gets is the ability to see into the future, and soon she comes across three young women who are revealed to later down the line become spider people, and they're being targeted by a person who already has sightseeing abilities as well and wants to kill these three girls before they even become superhero beings and kill him. So it's up to Cassandra Webb to pretty much save these three teenagers and stop the bad guy trying to kill the three of them while she herself is coming into her own powers. Look, it's no secret at all. I may not have enjoyed the DC Extended Universe, but that series might as well be Oscar material compared to Sony's Spider-Man universe. There is not a single movie in this franchise that has worked for me. Venom was crap, but for some reason made a buttload of money. Venom Let There Be Carnage was, in my opinion, even worse, and Morbius was just flat out pathetic in terms of it being bad. Like, it was an awful movie, but I can't be too harsh on it just because of how pathetic it is. So after Morbius, I just thought to myself, you know what? That's three movies. I'm done. I'm no longer seeing any other movie in the cinematic universe because I know that it's going to be hot garbage. And yet here I am reviewing Madam Web. So why am I reviewing this movie, you may ask? Well, the main reason is curiosity. Because of how laughably bad that first trailer was, I felt like I had to see this movie for myself because it looked like such a train wreck that I gotta see it to believe it. And plus, all these movies have been continuously losing money. Like, each movie makes less and less with every installment. Unlike Michael Bay's Transformers, which keep making buttloads of money, I felt like, well, Madam Web may be a bomb, so I don't feel too bad about going to see it and like giving it some success. And I gotta say, I am so grateful that I decided to go see this movie and just flat out lie about never seeing one of these movies, because Madam Web is a movie that is that special kind of bad that I live for. It is a fascinatingly bad movie. A lot of people have compared it to Halle Berry's Catwoman, which came out 20 years ago, and I would say, yeah, this is basically Marvel's Catwoman because of how inept it's made, how baffling some of the story decisions are. Like, this is the kind of movie that I kind of wanted Morbius to be. Everyone paints Morbius as the incompetent, so bad it's good kind of movie. But Morbius at the end of the day is just bad. Like, there's nothing memeable about it. The only thing that even came across as a meme is something that's not even in the movie. It's Morbin time, which, hey, call me an old man, I don't get that. I don't get why that became such a thing. But Madam Web is truly that movie that's going to be spoofed years from now because of how baffling it is. One key element about this movie that makes it so baffling is the lack of shits that all the actors are giving. Nobody in this movie gives a good performance, and all of them go through the movie without a care in the world. Dakota Johnson is terrible in this movie, but you can almost admire how far she's willing to go to not care about this film. Even in the press tour, she could give two craps less about this movie. The three actresses that would go on to play the future Spider-Women, Sweeney, Isabela Merced, and Celeste O'Connor, don't care at all, especially Sweeney, who we all know can give a good performance. We've seen her act. I mean, I didn't think she did a really good job at convincing people that she used to be a Universal tour guide, but that's neither here or there. In this movie, she is flat out awful. But I mean, again, everyone is, and it's not their fault. For everyone involved on the creative end, this was clearly a job. They did it solely for the money. They didn't really care at all, and they just went through the motions trying to get through each shooting day. That's what it felt like. But back to the actors, Tahar Rahim plays Ezekiel Sims, the film's villain, and he may actually be the worst comic book villain ever made. And that's saying a lot compared to the villains that show up in movies like Black Adam, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, or Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. You don't understand what his motivation is. He wants to go after these 3 girls because he had visions of the future where the 3 of them, as Spider-Women, would end up killing him, and he just wants to maintain his power. He even has his own Oracle, who basically sits in a chair going through all the security cameras throughout New York City, trying to find these 3 girls before they eventually become Spider-Women. And I'm thinking, dude, you're just super paranoid. Like, go take a trip to the Bahamas or something, go smoke a joint, relax. You're really taking this way too far. And his motivation actually lends itself to a major plot hole in the film, because we have Adam Scott playing a young Uncle Ben, and we also have Emma Roberts playing a pregnant Mary Parker, pregnant with an unborn Peter Parker. And considering that this movie is basically Spider-Man Terminator, that's a great idea to have Ezekiel Sims go, okay, my objective is to kill these 3 girls before they get superpowers. But wait, I have a vision of another superhero being who's not born yet, but could also be a danger to me. I gotta kill him as well. But no, that plot goes nowhere. Adam Scott and Emma Roberts have no reason to be in this movie, and if you were to cut that whole subplot out, nobody would have missed it. And I mean nobody. The only reason to have this movie set in 2003 and to have a pregnant Mary Parker and to have Peter be born at the end of the movie is for them to address the issue of this universe having no Spider-Man. And by the way they go about trying to tiptoe around Spider-Man, even though Sony has the actual rights for the movies, is they try to play an awkward game at a baby shower where they guess the baby's name. We never get around to it, but we already know what the name of the baby is. Ezekiel Sims is dressed in a costume that looks like evil Spider-Man, but nobody can actually say the name Spider-Man, even though they said Spider-Man in Morbius. And also, they try to modify the "with great power comes great responsibility" line. There were rumors beforehand that Uncle Ben would get that quote in a fortune cookie. Nothing like that happens, although considering how beautifully terrible this film is, I wouldn't have put it past them to try. No, the line comes in, kind of, from a character who was there when Cassandra Webb's mother died and when she was born. And it's during a sequence in the middle of the movie that's pretty much a big exposition dump and is there to give closure on Cassandra's rough relationship with her mother. And that character pretty much tells Cassandra Webb, if you have responsibility, great power will come. Normally, I don't like to be vocal in a movie because I want to be considerate of the audience around me, but considering that I saw this on a Friday night and there was only about 5 people in the theater, I just had no issues in saying, "Get the fuck out of here," when that line was uttered. And that line was uttered later on in the movie as like a reminder for Cassandra, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Yes, I am aware of the fact that I am dropping spoilers for this movie left and right, but considering how bad it's tracking and the fact that there really doesn't seem to be any excitement for this movie, I don't think y'all care if I spoil this or not. I'm reviewing this movie in the same way I reviewed Jurassic World Dominion 2 years ago, where this movie is so bad that I have to talk to you about the spoiler stuff. And I'll add a few more elements to the spoilers. There's a moment in the movie when the 3 girls are left in the woods. Cassandra tells them, "Stay right here, I'll be back." So after a horrible event that almost got the 3 of them killed, what do? They decide to leave the woods, go to a diner in a public place, and just start dancing on tabletops, trying to impress high school boys. And you're just like, come on, like that's so stupid. Nobody in their right mind, after nearly being killed by some dude, would even dare go out in public and be that carefree. Later on in the movie, there's a scene where the three girls stay with Uncle Ben just as Mary Parker's water breaks. So the five of them have to get to the hospital to deliver the young Peter Parker, but the only disguise that these girls have are hoodies. There's even a point where they drive past a bank and one of the girls looks dead into the security camera, and you're like, why? Why would you even do that? You know you're being hunted by this superpowered maniac who's paranoid as hell. Why would you willingly look dead into a security camera? I could show you all the easiest disguise in the world without hoodies, and I bet you Ezekiel Sims wouldn't pick up on my location. Watch. See? Eyes covered, face covered, wearing a hat so nobody recognizes my hair. It's the perfect disguise. Okay, so enough of that. Is there anything good about the movie? Like, is there anything that is legitimately good? Well, there is one set in this movie that I thought looked pretty cool. I know I'm scraping the absolute bottom of the barrel to try to find something good to say, but the cave that Cassandra Webb goes to, where her mother died when researching spiders, and where she was born, is actually a cool set. Like, it's an actual set, and I always have a fascination for cool-looking caves, especially ones that have openings to where the sun can come in. That's as much as I'll say in terms of positive feedback. Now, there was also one scene in this movie that got so much joy out of me, but not for any of the right reasons. And I'll say this right now, it's the reason why I think this movie is slightly better than Josh Trank's Fantastic Four, because a lot of people have been debating which of these is the worst movie. And the only reason why I think this is better than Josh Trank's Fantastic Four is because there's a scene where Ezekiel Sims is about to kill the three teenagers, Ben and Mary Parker, in their car with a grenade, and then all of a sudden, Cassandra drives an ambulance through a building like she's Luke Hobbs from Furious 7, and then Ezekiel Sims looks up, but the thing is, the way the ambulance is flying from the building, if Ezekiel Sims just stood right where he is, the ambulance would have gone right over him and missed him entirely. But what he ends up doing when he sees the ambulance flying towards him, he jumps in the air and gets smacked by the ambulance. And I laughed my ass off at that moment. I turned into Robert De Niro from Cape Fear, except I didn't have a cigar in my hand. Like, I was the only one in that theater cackling at that moment because it came so out of nowhere and was so unnecessary. The villain was so stupid that he jumped to get hit by an ambulance when he could have stayed right where he was or ducked and not have gotten hit at all. I lost it at that moment. And that's ultimately the reason why I think this is a slightly better movie than Josh Trank's Fantastic Four. And I have to be totally honest, I got more enjoyment out of this than I did Morbius and the two Venom movies. Now, does that mean I think it's better than those movies? No, absolutely not. This is the worst of this cinematic universe. Because as a movie itself, it's incompetent, it's unearned. There's so many ridiculous moments and so many cheap cop-outs that just frustrate you. For example, you know how in the trailer they show all the teenagers in their spider costumes? Yeah, those scenes are actually flash forwards into the future. We don't actually see them in those costumes in the present day. I hope those actresses got to take those costumes home, or at the very least steal them, because they're never going to get the opportunity to wear them again. So yeah, it's a terrible movie all around. It is awful by every sense of the word, but I look at this movie, for me, in the same way I look at Halle Berry's Catwoman, but also Howard the Duck and the 1990 Captain America movie, where it's a terrible movie that I am bizarrely fascinated with. I was so curious to see what was going to happen next in terms of how terrible it was. And by the time we got to the end of the movie with the big climax, oh man, it is laughably bad. Like, it's unearned and it's a flat-out joke. So I'm not going to tell this movie to burn in hell, because that rating is specifically reserved for movies that make me angry. Like Venom Let There Be Carnage made me more angry than this movie did. This movie, I got too much enjoyment out of it to become angry at it. So I will say, don't waste your money on it. It's very clear that the superhero genre is dying because they keep making mediocre to bad movies. Considering that this is the first superhero movie of the year, and Sony's gonna eventually release Kraven and Venom 3 later this year, I very much feel like this is going to be the nail in the coffin when it comes to superhero movies. Because, oh boy, this is truly an awful movie. In the way that Batman and Robin killed the superhero genre until Bryan Singer's X-Men, I feel like Madam Web, had they not announced and put into production so many other superhero movies from other studios and universes, then this would have been the movie to kill the genre for a few years. So if you're not a fan of superhero movies at all, or you're sick of them, there's no reason to see this movie at all. However, if you have a weird fascination with bad movies, and I'm talking about really bad movies, then Madam Web is a movie that you gotta see at some point. From the absurd plot, the unintentionally funny moments, the lack of shits the actors give, the terrible ADR on the villain when he's talking, even when he's unmasked. It's probably the worst ADR I've ever seen in a major Hollywood film. The terrible CGI and the editing that makes it look like this movie's having a seizure. This is the kind of bad movie that you gather your friends for. You bring some weed, get a case of beer, set the whole thing up like a Riff Tracks or Mystery Science Theater type way, and you will just laugh your ass off at how beautifully bad this movie is. Again, as a movie itself, this is the worst of the Sony Spider-Man universe, but because of how just fascinating it is in terms of its failure, I got more enjoyment out of this than I did those other movies. It's not good at the end of the day, but man, it is truly a sight to behold. And there you go, that's my review for Madam Web. I hope you enjoyed it. And now I want to know what you guys think about the movie. Whatever your opinions are, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. If you want to find me elsewhere on YouTube, you can go check out my theme park and travel channel, Alexander Robinson Travel Channel, and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.